Okay, we're live.
Okay, good day, everyone. Welcome. Today is October the 24th, and welcome to the Zoomcast or virtual meeting of the Suburban Chicago Apple Users Group. I am your host, George Brooks. Today, we have a good Zoomcast for you, or meeting, or webinar, whichever you want to say it is. But we have Dave Ginsburg to talk about new Apple products and reviews, and we also have a special guest, Michael Eisenberg. He's going to talk about managing your digital legacy. Now, you want to definitely stick around for all these things. Let me tell you a little bit about who we are. The Suburban Chicago Apple Users Group, we're a group of over 100 individuals in the Chicagoland area who meet regularly and exchange ideas and practices about technology and Apple products. We're savvy, and also how to save money on your technology. And knowing, enjoying our Apple passion for that Apple technology. You can reach us online at mysau.org. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and introduce our president, Dave Ginsburg. Dave has over 20 years experience as an IT professional. He's very knowledgeable about Apple products and PCs and different mobile devices, which are his real passion, that Apple stuff. He is a subject matter expert on Apple iOS devices and participates on several podcasts, including for Mac Guys Only, and he has his own podcast, In Touch with iOS. We are fortunate to have him updated us on everything latest in iOS. Go ahead, Dave, take it away.
Thanks, George, and welcome. And I'd also like to welcome all of our guests we have today. I hope you enjoy our presentation, and looking forward to provide you some great information here. So really what I was going to review today was I was going to review some of the things that were just announced, and we've got some more information on them, obviously, because some things are in the wild, some are not. And I want to talk a little bit about chargers, because everybody's having a challenge of not having a plug in the box when they get their iPhones here now. So I thought that I would touch upon that a little bit as well. So let me share my screen here, and we'll get started. Let's see. Bear with me here. All right. Should be able to see my screen now. Let's start off with iOS. Apple did release 14.1 last week. It actually came out on Tuesday, just before the iPhone 12 and 12 Pro was shipped. So that is the shipped version that came on with the iPhone 12, and going forward, that's the version that will be on there. It had some bug fixes and some other things, but they wanted to have the shipped version ready to go for the iPhone 12. So that is the current version that's out right now. There's no harm in installing that at this point. We're on 14.0.1, and that'll be coming out soon. The other version that's out there right now is in beta, and that's that's iOS 14.2. And interesting to see what's going on with beta 4. I'm pretty confident that this version is going to get released on November 13th at the very latest, probably that week, when the iPhone 12 mini and the iPhone 12 Pro Max, which is the iPhone I will be purchasing, it comes out when the pre-orders happen on November 6th. The biggest thing that's going to be added to that is the fact that HomePod is going to have support with intercom, which I'm going to talk about here in just a second here. So just be aware of that, and if there's any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll definitely get them answered for you as far as that goes. And going forward here, I wanted to talk a little bit about the HomePod, and the HomePod. Let me bring up my browser here. The HomePod has this new thing that's going to have that's going to be available called intercom. So of course we learned about that when the announcement came through on the event here. So interesting thing is 14.2 is the version that is going to support HomePod intercom. Now, Apple did release a new version of the software because HomePods, the regular HomePods, which are still out currently, didn't have that version installed as of yet until last week. So now 14.1 is now out for HomePod, and that does include intercom. And intercom is going to be supported if you currently have a regular HomePod, not the HomePod Mini. This article here that I've got up on the screen, this is actually from a great website, macstories.net. If you go to that website, Federico Vertucci and John Verhees are really great guys that do all kinds of great stuff about Apple. And this was a great story about this. And I pulled this up specifically because I wanted to show you kind of what they experienced. I currently don't have 14.2 on a production device, so I can't demonstrate the HomePod intercom just yet. But these guys did it for us, so I wanted to kind of just talk through it a little bit and what you kind of can expect. This image here actually shows an iPad, and the intercom is actually coming up here and allows you to walk through and actually make and set it up. And it also incorporates the intercom within the HomeKit as well. And I just remember I realized I forgot to add my Pro mouse here. Let me reload this real quick so you guys can see my cursor. So if you're noticing here, this is the intercom wizard that's going to come up, and you'll go through and set it up in HomeKit. And then when you go to HomeKit here, it's going to have this little icon here. This is your intercom system. So now it's built into Siri, so it'll allow you to actually send a message to somebody throughout the house. If you have your HomePod minis and your HomePods, you'll be able to send a message, and they will be able to respond back very easily. It was kind of funny on my podcast, In Touch with iOS. My co-host Warren, of course, he's always on the cutting edge and has beta installed on all of his devices. He during the show actually did an intercom to ask what the score of the football game was at the time we were recording this past Thursday. And instead of his son knowing how to respond yet because it's so new, he came into the room and told him what the score was. That just kind of proved that it does work, and people can hear what this intercom system is going to work, how this is going to work. So it works across all devices, including your Apple Watch. You actually can use the intercom on your Apple Watch as well. As most of you know, on your Apple Watch, you do have a walkie-talkie feature available on your watch where you can walkie-talkie between Apple Watches. Well, now you're going to have the intercom capability on your watch as well. And it does show that some of the home apps systems that are in here are available as well, and is going to give you opportunities as far as being able to set alarms and being able to go through a time picker and be able to listen to music. And you also are going to, these are some of the other features that it's added beyond just the intercom. So this does have a exciting piece that's going to be added to the HomePod and the HomePod Mini for sure. HomePod Mini in itself, I can't wait. I think many of you out there are going to be pretty excited to be able to get a hold of one of these, because it's only $99, and those are going to go on pre-sale on November 6th. And I'm definitely going to be excited to see where we go as far as that goes. Do we have any questions about HomePod intercom out there? I didn't. I don't know if anybody moderating here for me to say if we have any questions.
We do not have any questions at this time. And by the way, yes, I am going to get a HomePod Mini.
Okay. I think for the $99 price, I don't think it's going to be it's going to be too difficult to afford, as well as I think it's going to be a very hot seller for the Christmas season. So I would, if you're interested in it, I would definitely put it on your calendar to pre-order on November 6th, because I would bet to say that it's going to be hard to get. That's for sure.
Dave?
Yes.
It's Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
You know, it seemed like they were hinting that it would also work with AirPlay in the car.
Yes, it will.
Really?
CarPlay, you mean, right? CarPlay.
Yeah. Cool.
Yes, it will. If you recall the demonstration they did at that last Apple event, the person in the car was telling the family that the pizza's on its way. So yes, it is going to have that capability. I have not seen any live demos of that as of yet, but it's definitely going to be something that's going to be available through CarPlay. Yes. Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Let me move on a little bit and let's just talk a little bit about the iPhone. iPhone 12 and the iPhone 12 Pro are out now. They're in people's hands. There's been lots of unboxings. If you go on YouTube and search iPhone 12 unboxing, I can guarantee you'll probably find, I probably say a couple hundred. I'm probably exaggerating a little bit, but there's probably a lot of them out there. Notably, I like watching like iJustine and many others that do it. It's kind of fun to watch them do it. And they're Apple influencers, of course, they're going to get their hands on an iPhone a lot quicker than we are. Is anybody here today? Did they buy the iPhone 12 or 12 Pro? Anybody out there? If you are, say yes. I can't imagine they did because most people are not early adopters that I'm aware of here in our group, except me, of course. So it's pretty exciting to see those out in the wild now, and of course you had people have already dropped them, so they can show you that yes, it breaks. And I posted a picture actually on Facebook the other day because I saw it on Twitter. Of course, someone had to drop it, and it was completely shattered on the back panel, and I just don't understand why people have to do that. I understand they want to test it. They got disposable income. That's great. I appreciate them showing us that yes, it can break. It does have that ceramic shield on the screen, which is going to probably improve on its shatterability. They said about 4 times improved. So if you do drop it, it's gonna be able to resist a lot better than it had been. So yeah. It's out now, and then the next 2 models that will be coming out, I have to unfortunately wait. We have 2 weeks here. This is November 6th is the pre-order for the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I have the 11 Pro Max currently, and love this phone, and I like the size, and I'm pretty excited to get that on pre-order, especially with the camera. So you'll be hearing a lot more about that and of iPhone 6 coming up in December, so you'll get my hands-on review of it as well as the great things that the camera can do, because that's really what has really enhanced this device. So let's kind of change gears a little bit here, and I wanted to talk a little bit about chargers. imore.com here. This is a good website here, and I'm going to put all these links in the community, so don't worry. I'll have these post community, or I will share them whoever, and we'll get those posted, so you don't have to worry about remembering all these things that I have talked about today. But as you know, with the iPhone 12, no more charger that's included in the box. So they are going to they're going to be excluding the charger. And when you buy a new iPhone 12 or any of the 12 models, all 4 of them, you will have a Lightning to USB-C cable in the box instead. So everything is going kind of that direction, is USB-C. Many of the iPads have already done that. The iPad Air, the new Air, that also just came out. I'll talk about it in just a minute. That has a USB-C connector now. But I think there's some pretty slick there's some pretty slick power adapters that are out there. I had this feeling that the two big ones here, which would be Anker and Aki. These are my 2 favorite brands out there when it comes to adapters. They have this technology. It's called GAN, GAN. And the GAN chargers, what they are is they're physically smaller than the current chargers. They become they are that way because of the gallium nitrate chargers don't require as many components as the silicon chargers, so they charge a lot faster, and they're inexpensive. Now this charger here, this is the Anker. It's a nano iPhone charger. I just attended a press event last week. Everything, of course, being virtual now because part of the Consumer Electronics Show in CES. So there was an event this past week. So all kinds of cool things. But I wanted to narrow it down today what I'm talking about here about as far as chargers go. And Anchor actually introduced this model here, and I believe, let me see what I got. Yep, this is it here. This is on Amazon. I mean, look at the price there, $17 for a power adapter. Now, this is some of the claims that they're making. It's going to be about 3 times faster than your standard charger. And you can also if you wanted to, you get a USB-C to Lightning cable, and for your older iPhones, and it would charge a little faster as well. And it does say it charges your AirPods and anything else with it as well. So it's saying 15 minutes to charge and 3.5 minutes as far as the data here goes. I'll go through all this data stuff here, but here's some of the compatibility. And as you look, it's just the footprint itself. It's just a really tiny little adapter. And for $17, as you see already, they're already having some stock issues. It was in stock last week. I just checked this here now, and yeah, it's a little out with time here. So, but iMore also picked a couple others. Now, Aukey is another good product. This is around $15. The same thing. If you're noticing here, it's got these little icons here, IQ. What IQ is it's an intelligence that senses how much charge is being added to the device and makes sure that it's not overcharging things. Aukey has a very similar thing as well. Now this one here, this is the actual Apple charger. It's a 20-watt charger, and you're paying $20 for Apple's version of that. I've had that one for my iPhone, my iPad for a while, and that one is available as well. But these down here are a little more interesting. Now this one here, this is an Aukey, but this is a 30-watt charger. This is a USB-C port, but this also has a USB-A in here as well. So this might be either one of these, the Anchor or Aukey. They only had the A's with these two here. Are really a great little device here too. And then you also have this other company called Rav Power, also an option with the smarts here that gives you USB-C as well as having the USB-A and both work with that as well. Let me show you a couple of the other ones that were on Amazon that caught my eye here too. This is actually made by that Rav Power. This is the same device that's got the smart USB-A as well as USB-C, and this actually is a 65-watt charger for $39.99. This actually will charge a MacBook Pro as well. They also have another model that's a 100-watt charger that's around this same price. They're so tiny and small now because of having the GaN technology. It charges a lot faster, and it can be smaller. So who wants to carry around your big giant MacBook Pro brick when you can carry this around? And this could be your universal charger for basically charging anything. So, so that's pretty exciting. That's available as well. Do we have any questions out there at all as I've been going on here? I see, Davis, you had your hand raised, unless you had something to say.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I basically had 2 questions. One, just quickly going back to the iPhone 12, and I have not had time to do any research on this. What are your recommendations about anyone who's on the 11 today? I mean, obviously, I know some of us like yourself are on the fringe, right? But if you're on an 11 today, is there enough in the iPhone 12 to warrant an upgrade to the 12 if you're on an iPhone 11? And then secondly, and I think you answered some of these questions, is has there been anything from Apple regarding either taking back older cords and chargers that you're going to be swapping out in lieu of USB-C and these newer chargers? And will there be any sort of a trade-in program for it? Because I have not heard anything.
I'll do the second one first here. As far as power adapters, I have not heard word one of it other than they were, the big hype about being environmentally friendly and getting rid of these power gaps. So no, I think, unfortunately, those are going to get added to the landfill just like everything else. As far as going from the 11 goes, I'm assuming you have the 11. Do you have the 11 or the 11 Pro? The 11 Pro has a very similar camera. Really, the only real justification would be to jump up is going to be the photography piece of it all. With the Pro, you're going to have the LiDAR, which is the amazing sensor for autofocus and for helping for low light. All the iPhones across the line, the 12 all the way up to the 12 Pro Max, are going to have the low light setting that's going to allow you to be able to take better photos while you're in lower light. But beyond that, I mean, it's a good looking phone. It's got the nice edges now that's similar to what the iPhone SE had, and those back in those days when everybody had the iPhone 5 and the 5S, which were the squared off edges. Other than that, I mean, if you have the 11, I don't see any real justification to have to upgrade. Other than those what I just mentioned, it relates to that. So not everybody is an upgrader like I am, so I know and I understand that. But but that's how we learn about the new products too. Jerry, I see you raising your hand. Why don't you ask your question about this? You have to unmute your mic. Or if he's probably still in as a panelist.
I'll just step in here quickly and say that Apple has almost
Thanks.
for years taken back chargers and cables at their stores, and they're still doing it. I don't know how they're doing it now in the pandemic era. It's still on their website though, so I assume that they will take them. So that's all.
Okay.
Hey, Dave, promote me when you get a minute.
Yeah, I've got there's a lot of people in here who have not been promoted to panelists here. So Jerry, I've just opened up your mic. Go ahead and ask your question. Are you still there, Jerry? Okay. Well,
can I ask mine just before?
Yeah. Go ahead, Susan. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear the answer. When you get a new phone, what's the best way to change your contract over or your ISP to your new phone?
Well, when you purchase in my case, I have T-Mobile. So when I purchase my iPhone 12 Pro Max, it's automatically going to transfer over. They automatically take care of it for you.
But so if you get it online, so you're not actually at your ISP store.
Right. I buy it through Apple. So Apple handles it as well. It's handled.
They'll do it for you beforehand. Okay.
Yeah. Cause
you just have to swap your SIM for your carrier. Okay.
Well,
that's all you.
It depends.
In most cases.
Yeah. If you're going to hang on, Jerry. Hang on, Jerry. Let me finish this. Okay. Sure. So when I purchase my phone through Apple makes me declare which carrier I'm going to have. So I say T-Mobile. So I'm in the trade-in plan. So I get the new phone, and then I'm able to get the service transferred over. So if you're buying the phone unlocked, it's different. It all depends on where you buy it and how you buy it, and relates to the carrier. You don't have to buy your iPhone from a carrier directly through the carrier. You can buy it through Apple and don't have a problem there. So, okay, go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, I listed on Community some of the advantages. When it comes to photography, Brooks, there's no question this is the finest iPhone ever made, and maybe the finest cell phone ever made for photography.
I agree.
The telephoto lens is longer, so you get a better autofocus background, you get a better shape of the head. It goes on and on and on and on. There's a whole list on the Community there I posted.
Thank you.
And to me, as a photographer, I wouldn't want to miss this. I'll wait till December if I have to get it.
Yep.
But anyway, that's my point of view.
No, thank you. All right.
Dave?
Yes.
Dave, I have two questions actually. One,
okay,
I have an eSIM on my T-Mobile iPhone. If I buy a new phone from Apple, will that eSIM transfer, or do I have to do something with T-Mobile? Any idea?
I've been trying to find out that answer myself here, and I haven't seen any straight answers. I know with 5G, because people would get the eSIM. Let me kind of explain what an eSIM is, if anybody isn't aware of this. This is an electronic SIM that's actually built into the phones now these days. Most of the newer iPhones have that technology. So what happens is you don't need to have a physical SIM in order to be able to activate your phone. It does have dual SIM on these phones now, so you can have a physical SIM as well as an eSIM. And they were saying that because of 5G that you cannot do a dual SIM just yet. The software needs to be updated, and that hasn't happened just yet. So you couldn't have two separate, because some people like to have two separate lines on their iPhone. So I don't know the answer on that as of yet, Tom. I have not seen anything. I've been searching that out as well because I'm still worried that I'm going to have to go back to a physical SIM until they figure this out. So once I find out something, I will definitely post it on the community.
And the other question is, we bought a laptop in February using the SCAU discount. I know that won't be available for the iPhone because it never is at the start, at least.
Sure won't.
But I got an email from Apple asking me if I wanted to buy a new phone. So if I use that email from the Apple business people, because I guess that's what our discount is through, will that automatically give credit to the group?
Probably not. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, you aren't able to go into the stores. I don't think so. So
okay, thank you.
It is what it is. All right, I'm out of time here with 9:25, and we have our next presenter coming up here. So if you have any other questions, please use the community. Go out of the community and ask those questions, and I'll be here as well for during the rest of the meeting today. So I'll head back over to George.
Thank you, Dave. By the way, one thing I wanted to mention, if in the event that you don't want to take your cables to the Apple store for for recycling, you can actually take them to a nonprofit such as Goodwill or Salvation Army. That's a good place to actually take them, and they can be resold for other individuals to use them. Okay, good. At this time, I want to actually introduce our next presenter, which is Michael DJ Heisenberg. He is a Washington, D.C. based attorney who has over 40 years in the legal field. He has a love of technology. He has been helping himself with other individuals in their daily lives with technology and legal challenges. Recently, Michael has turned his passion for helping his friends and family with their tech issues into a blog. Then he went from a blog to his webpage, The Technology Savvy Lawyer. Then he went from his blog and his tech page to a podcast, actually helping and other attorneys with tips on how to actually utilize technology, and the Tech Savvy Lawyer page and podcast. He interviews regularly judges and attorneys and others about their use of technology in the legal arena. Today, he's going to share his insights and expertise on how to manage your digital legacy. At this time, I want to go ahead and welcome Michael. Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, George. And thank you, George, and thank David, and thank the SCAU for inviting me here today to present. George, just got to clarify a couple things. I've been using technology for almost over 40 years. I've been in the legal arena for at least 20, give or take. Oh, okay. And so I started off with the blog, went to the podcast, and here we are today. And as I mentioned, I'm very excited about this, and I want to thank everyone for inviting me. In a moment, we're going to switch screens over the presentation. But before we start the presentation, I'm going to request that all questions are presented at the end, because I have a feeling that a lot of the questions that are going to come up are going to be answered in a subsequent slide. But happy to answer any and all questions. And if that's okay, I think I have screen control. Is that correct? Because I need to broadcast from my screen.
You should have screen control. If not, you'll have it in a second. Go ahead and try.
Let me, here we go. I gotta go here. And I don't have the share screen function open or available to me.
One of my guys behind the curtain actually take care of that for me.
Okay, I'm now the co-host now. Unfortunately, that option of share screen is still not provided to me.
Uh-oh. Okay, we're working on it diligently. And
no worries, it happens. It all happens. Trust me, I've seen and heard worse. At least we're not in the middle of a trial and the judge is upset because, we don't have our tech together.
I just made you co-host, so you should have share screen at the bottom there. It's in the Zoom app.
Oh yeah, you're right. Here we go. Okay, so let's do this. And all right, and I need to hit play. Okay, so hopefully I'll ask George and David, can we see the beginning of the?
No,
we still can't see your screen.
No.
Oh, you can't?
No,
No.
unfortunately not.
Stand by 2 seconds.
Okay.
Share screen. Oh. Okay, let me just do one thing, and then I think I got this. Very sorry. Here we go.
No problem. By the way, for those of you who are our guests today, don't forget you can actually join us online on our website and actually join the organization at myscau.org. We welcome all individuals that come and join us and be a part. And now that Mike has his screen shared, well, I'll turn it back over to him.
Excellent. And forgive me, I just want to make sure everyone can see the Tech Savvy Lawyer Presents.
Actually,
Well,
it looks like we're seeing something. It looks
we're
like
seeing your Messages app.
You're seeing your Messages app. So you
Okay, now that's that should not have happened because I specifically picked Keynote. Let me.
Yeah, maybe you just want to move.
You might want to
over
just
the
move it
screen.
over to the other screen where your Messages app is, because that's the screen we're seeing.
Are we seeing this?
Yeah,
Yes,
now we
see it.
see.
Yes.
Now we see.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, now I don't know how that happened, but okay. And I do apologize to the viewer. So let me get rid of this. And so, as George mentioned, I'm Michael DJ Eisenberg. I'm an attorney here based in Washington, D.C. I am the Tech Savvy Lawyer, blogging at the techsavvylawyer.page and host of the techsavvylawyer.page podcast. And today we are going to present the digital afterlife, what to do to protect your digital assets when you kick the bucket. And so moving forward, a couple things I gotta warn you about. There is a disclaimer, as with all attorneys, the following presentation is not legal advice. To be clear, this presentation does not create an attorney-client relationship. The presentation is for information purposes only. And lastly, consult your attorney for any legal advice about digital wills, estate planning, wills, etc. Now, believe it or not, there is always a reason why there's a disclaimer, because there's always a reason why you don't put the bag over your head or point the gun in your mouth, because there's always been someone not paying attention, and these things need to be done, unfortunately. But let's move on into the presentation. We have a little Halloween theme. So I have a question for you. Do you need a will? I'm just talking about a will, digital will or not. So ask yourself, do you own property, have money, or have things? That, to be blunt, do you care about what happens to this stuff when you die? I think most of us do. And that's why, ultimately we need a will so people know who gets what, when, where, and why. And you need a will. But I know what you're asking yourself. But if I have a will, why do I need a digital will? It's determining physical versus digital. We need a physical will or a regular will because we have houses, cars, boats, money, jewelry, deeds, photos, etc. A digital will covers, as you might expect, digital, anything digital, everything electronic on your computer, your hard drives, the internet, etc. Pardon me. The thing is, some of these things have value. For instance, like I'm an attorney and I have a whole bunch of case files that are digitized. I have computers and internet pages that actually have value to them. And I want to make sure that they are distributed appropriately if I become either incapacitated or, heavens forbid, die. What is a digital will? Again, generically, it covers anything electronic that you may have an interest in. Are any of you buyers or sellers on Amazon? Do you have a Pinterest account? Do you have a Google account with information that's important to you that may have some financial equity? So for those of you who are in Illinois, you might want to take a look at the Illinois Digital Assets Act. And there's a there is a link at the bottom that I can share with everyone. There's gonna be a bunch of links throughout this that I'm happy to share with everyone. If you email me or if we want to work through David and George, I'm happy to provide all the links. But again, I realize you're saying, but what is the big deal? I only have a few accounts, right? That, you know, it's gonna be easy enough. But the thing is, with every email, people tend to have, on average, 130 different accounts. That's accounts like not just Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I think that's Ghostery, if I remember correctly. But we have other accounts. We have our Apple account, we have our Google account, we have our iTunes account, we have our airlines account, we have digital services accounts, we have our cell provider accounts, we have Amazon accounts, Plex accounts, Spotify accounts. And these are just a few. I mean, so just imagine all these different accounts that you have, some of which may have some value. I mean, your iTunes accounts of all the movies and music that you've downloaded, the value on your Metro card, the points in your travel cards, it's a long list. So you're asking yourself, well, maybe I should create a digital will. Where should I start? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to make a list. And it's going to be a long list. Now, you could make it on a spreadsheet, but I want you to think about this. You're going to put this on a spreadsheet. Well, what do you need to have on there? You need to have a list of the account, the web page, the username, the password, and any other pieces of information that may identify you to the account. But if you put it on a spreadsheet, somebody could easily get access to it if they were to crack the password on your computer or your phone. So that's not really the safest way to do it. It's simply not secure. How about a password manager, like 1Password, or Keeper, or LastPass, or Dashline? These are all solid password managers. If you have 130 accounts on average, you should have different types of passwords. You know, one of the slides I didn't bring here was some of the most common passwords are still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, password, you know, remember my password, temp. Those are some of the easiest hackable passwords, and you don't want those. And you're going to want generators like 1Password, Keeper, Dashline, and LastPass that will provide a more complex password that is unique to your login name and different from others. It's one of the reasons why I like 1Password, and I'd be happy to come back and do a presentation on just passwords and password generators. They are something that you should consider investing in, because again, you don't want people getting access to your digital private stuff, especially that stuff that is either very personal or has financial value to it. And you're asking yourself, well, who should be my digital will executor? It could be your regular will executor, but there's this new series of laws that are going across state to state that was generated, called the Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act, the FADA. Now, the thing is, a group of contract attorneys came up with this idea to generate sort of a baseline for states to follow. The thing is, even though it's up to each state to enact that law, all but 3 states have an FADA. But here's the thing. Each state is likely to have its own FADA. What does that mean? It means that one state's FADA is not the same as another. So you need to check with your attorney for that state where your will is located. Like I said, check with your attorney. Now, again, we're still under the concept of, we're still under the concept who should be your digital will executor. So again, you can look at the uniformlaws.org, search under Access to Digital Assets Act, and you'll come up with a list. This was made several days ago, and you can see, again, 3 states do not have an enacted FADA, but each of the other states do have a bill number, do have a law in place, and you can easily look it up and then contact your attorney, say, hey, what do we need to do about this? Hopefully your attorney knows. If not, you may want to present this to him or her. It can be your regular will executor. Your regular will executor can be your DWE, but there are some limits. For instance, if you just say my executor is going to handle this, just let him deal with it without any guidance and direction, without any specifics, it's going to default to whatever that state's FDA is. And it may not include everything. So if it's like, well, I'm going to let him handle all my accounts. Well, the FADA may only count bank accounts, Facebook accounts, and Amazon accounts. Well, what about your mortgage companies? What about your Macy's? What about your iTunes? If it's not listed in your state's FADA, your executor may have absolutely no control to deal with those assets after you're gone. So you really need to spell out everything for that executor. Now, you can name someone else as your DWE. Make a list so you can split up the responsibilities. So for instance, you may not want your DWE to be handling all of your personal stuff. You may want a family member to handle your personal items and have a business associate, a partner, or even the executor to handle your business matters. I just attended a CLE presentation for attorneys about, well, what happens when you die? And what happens to the office when you pass? Who's in charge of what? Where are the bank accounts? What happens to the client files? What do you do with the client matters that are still ongoing? There are a list of things that need to be done by that partner or by that DWE that's specific to the firm. Same thing for a business. Same thing for a part-time business. Same thing for a nonprofit organization that you may be running. There needs to be details of who handles what. And you may not want your family involved with the business aspect because, your family's grieving. And then on the other hand, you may not want your business partner dealing with some of your personal stuff. It's none of their business. What does this mean? It means be detailed. Be as detailed as you can be. I gave a list of some things to consider: web pages, account numbers, login names, different types of accounts, bank accounts, credit cards, Macy's, Amazon, iTunes, Spotify, and then you got to delineate between who's going to take care of what. Identify that person you want to be your DWE. Identify what the DWE can and can't do, what accounts they can't access, what they can and can't do with those accounts. Get rid of any ambiguity. Now, I guarantee you, this is going to take time and it's going to stink. But it's all about, do we plan to fail or fail to plan? It's important that you're familiar with your provider's terms of service. Help your DWE. Every provider's terms of service may be different than each other, and we're going to walk through a couple. They may have their own terms or requirements for the DWE to interact with that provider. So, for instance, Facebook. You can create a memorialized account, a legacy account, or simply just delete it. A memorialized account simply allows you to lock the account and that nobody can do anything with it. It's sort of an memorandum to allow others, who are friends, family, and whatnot, to see what your account once was. But nobody can add to it. Nobody can take it away. A legacy account allows an individual to monitor, edit, annotate the account, even though the individual whose Facebook account that was has passed. Or you can simply delete it. And here's sort of an example from their webpage of how their memorialization request goes. PayPal requires a certified copy of the will which identifies the executor. If no will exists, a statement identifying the administrator and their interest in the estate and relationship with the deceased is needed. The contact details of the executor or the administrator are needed, which includes an email address and a phone number, any known account details, a government issued photo ID of the executor or administrator, an original or a certified copy of the death certificate. And it's helpful to have a certified copy of the grant of probate or letters of administration. And this will take some legwork because each TOS, as we talked about, has their own requirements. And here's a snapshot from PayPal. And lastly, we have Amazon. Regardless if the decedent was a buyer or seller, you will have to actually contact Amazon. They may require our DWE to contact them to deactivate an account. Helpful tip, have at least the decedent's death certificate. So here's a power tip. Whoever it is, make sure that they have your password manager's password. You might want to provide it in a sealed envelope marked to be opened upon your passing, incapacitation, etc. Just remember, when you update your password to your password manager, update the envelope and make sure the envelope is deliverable to the executor of your DWE or of your will itself. Because if they can't log into your password manager, there's nothing much they can do. All right, last tip, delete your old accounts. It takes some time, it makes sense. Get rid of clutter, make sure you're not paying for old accounts. Don't send your DWE down rabbit holes. You're dead, so don't add to the stress. I'm sure we all have old Yahoo accounts, old Gmail accounts, old, like an old iTunes account that we originally created for whatever reason. Just get rid of them, delete them. Don't make the DWE have to go through things that, quite frankly, just creates more work for them and adds stress to their lives. All right, I'm going to give you a super duper tip. Close related bank accounts first. When your decedent pass, the first thing you're going to want to probably do is close all of his or her bank accounts. Why? Well, things can't be charged to the accounts if the bank accounts are closed. But again, check with your state attorney and make sure that everything is done in the proper manner so that you don't run afoul of any consumer laws. So if you have any questions about this or other tech issues, feel free to contact me. I'm Michael D. Eisenberg, and I can be reached at michaeldj@thetechsavvylawyer.page, along with my web address of www.thetechsavvylawyer.page. And my podcast can be found on both Libsyn and iTunes. So I open it up to any questions, and I can turn off my screen share right now. Dave, George, do we have any questions?
Hey, I'm sure we're going to have some.
Yes. Any questions?
I've got one. I can't, Q&A isn't opening for me, so I put it in chat. But is there any real reason why, if my executor, say, is my husband, that I can't simply let him know what my password manager's master password is and let him close all the accounts without having to tell, for example, Facebook, this person has died. Why can't he simply close the account as if it were me?
Because he may, again, each TOS is going to be different, and legally speaking, fine. If he goes in and just starts closing things on your behalf, they may have some pushback. He may actually be violating the law depending on the state. And I understand what you're saying. Just have him go in and start deleting stuff. There may be pushback from the provider. The provider may say, are you the actual owner of the account? Also, if there's financial aspects to it, there's going to be certain, estates and planning laws that you're going to have to follow. So the problem is every state is different. And what may be required for one state may not be required for another, and vis-a-vis, and that's why you got to go and actually talk to an attorney. I understand what you're saying, just go in and delete it. That's the easy way to do it. However, that may not be the legal way to do it. Does that make sense? I realize I'm talking a little bit lawyerly goggly.
In my case, it would be things like, well, you mentioned a Macy's account, for example, or an Amazon account. That doesn't have, that's not like having a business, for example.
Right, but there may be some equity in it. There may be whether coupons or you did an overpayment one time, or but then it's also an issue of what the consumer laws are, whether or not, if he doesn't actually have power of authority to do what he's doing, he may inadvertently get in trouble.
Okay. But if my executor, let's say that my husband was my executor of my regular will also.
Right.
So that would probably be less legal problems in that case.
Well, yes and no. So if your husband, generally speaking, is the executor of your will, remember what I talked about? That's your will. That's not necessarily your digital will. No, so hold on. Let me finish. So okay, so your husband's your executor, and heavens forbid you pass, and your husband wants to close out a variety of accounts, and under your state's FATA, he may be allowed to actually close out some accounts, but your state's FATA may not allow him to close other types of accounts. And if that's the case, those are the accounts that you need to make sure are covered under your DWE, which is why you want to list everything out. Yeah, I can. You see, the problem is laws makes everything more complicated than it needs to be, and I get it. And what I think you want to do is make sure that, heavens forbid, when you pass, that things are as easy as possible for your husband to deal with all this. In a sense, ask yourself this, okay, if I pass and I don't have a will in place, what happens to all the stuff? My husband will just naturally get it. Not necessarily. If there's no will, the state may actually have an interest, a financial interest in part of your estate. and so you want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, but I'm supposing that I do have a will, and maybe I have a statement in my will saying that my husband has the right to handle all my digital assets.
That then depends on your state and the
state again. Okay.
Yeah, and your FATA, if that makes sense. But this is an aspect of people's wills that they don't really consider. Just figure, oh, it's just automatically in there. Not necessarily, especially if the state has its own provisions. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure.
I talk to my attorney.
Yes, well, that too, and your husband too.
Of course.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, we have another question here. Someone's asking, how do I create a DWE? Go to an attorney? I'll let you handle it.
Yes, the simple answer is yes. Go to your attorney, talk to your attorney. If your attorney's not familiar with that, you know, one, you can of course bring it to his or her attention, or two, you know, just because a person's an attorney, just because a person's a doctor doesn't necessarily mean they're a good doctor or that they cover in that particular field. Feel free to shop around. When I get calls about stuff that I don't know, I offer, I say, look, I just don't know it. This is outside my area of practice. And I would encourage you to talk to, Bob or Melissa or whoever I know that may know that I can offer a referral to, or just tell them to contact their state and local bar associations.
Okay. Is there a particular specialty name of attorneys that will actually handle the DWE that I can actually Google? Can I actually Google DWE attorneys?
Yeah, I mean, you can. I think that this is still a relatively new area of law, so I would first check with your attorney who's handling your will, and discuss it with him or her. If they don't know, I mean, either they're going to say, I don't know the answer to that. Let me get back to you. If on the other hand, they say, I have no idea what you're talking about and I don't want to talk about it, you might want to move on to another attorney.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? You can unmute your mic and step up, speak up.
Hi. Do you teach a class, or do you know of any classes that teaches you how to do this?
Not presently. I am working on something, and if you email me at michaeldj@thetaxsavvylawyer.page, I can keep you abreast about things that we're doing here.
How about, are there any YouTube videos?
Not that I'm aware of. Like I said, this is really a brand new area of law. What everyone figures it's already handled by one thing, but then it really turns out that it's not. So we have to create a whole new, a whole new casserole, if you will, of how to do things, and a whole new list and a whole new set of laws. But I mean, do feel free to contact me and we can discuss some things that I'm working on, and also how I may be able to guide you, generally speaking.
I think
Michael, I just had a, oh, sorry, George, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to go back and just kind of clarify something that Susan said, because my key takeaways from the presentation today are really three things. One, a digital will needs to be severed from a traditional will. And being vague about your digital assets in a traditional will doesn't prevent the issue of how those individual digital assets will be worked out. And I'm going through this right now. I have members of our family fighting over what happens to this account, what happens to that account. And because there was no clear direction, there's a lot of pressure and anger falling on the executor of the traditional will to make that decision. So the clearer you are about these different tangents of your life, and digital is a big one of them now, I don't think with as complex as it is, if I heard Michael's presentation correctly, that you can just simply say, you take care of all my accounts.
That's correct. And let's take one step back, and I'm going to use, if I may, Davis, I'm going to use you as an example. Davis has created this great YouTube channel and blog, the diabetic, diabetic savvy cook, diabetic savvy cook, I'm sorry, drew a blank. And to be blunt, that has value. God forbid Davis dies tomorrow. Well, what happens to everything that he's created? The YouTube channel, the blog, he's getting some money from that. Well, who gets that value of what he's created and the money that's coming in? Who gets that? He may want Cheryl, his wife, to get the financial income, but he may want to sell the blog to someone else at value. But who takes care of all that? Does Cheryl take care of that? Does the executor of the will take care of that? Does his brother take care of that? Or does his brother get all the money? There's going to be fights. I mean, so again, imagine you have an heirloom, this family heirloom, a family watch, okay? If you don't designate who that goes to, the family's going to fight over it. Oh, grandpa meant for me to have the watch. Oh, that was my father's watch. I'm entitled to it. Oh, I'm a cousin. Oh, I had an affair with him. All this kind of stuff. You have to be detailed. As detailed as you are in a will, you need to be detailed in your DWE. Your DWE, I believe, but depending on the state, can be annotated to your will. But again, that's more of a state-specific issue. And forgive me, we have a puppy here who's a 13-week-old puppy who's wanting a little attention. Davis, did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think what I wanted to do was just kind of mention the key takeaways that I got out of the presentation. Details. Yeah, and the other thing is, by the way, for those of everyone on the group, and George and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but this will be the slideshow will be posted on the community, and you can also rewatch this presentation on our YouTube channel, because there was a lot of information that was covered here that I think we'll have to go back and look at, specifically like links and those kind of things that you talked about. But I think again, my big takeaway was you can no longer just assume that your life is one big package. It's boxes within boxes, right? Your digital life is separate from your physical life. Your business life is separated from your personal life. And you really need to be really specific about what your wishes are for those individual subcategories.
Yes. Absolutely.
Great job. Yeah, I loved it. So thank you. If I don't get a chance to say thank you again or later on.
Oh, thanks, Davis.
Yeah, thanks, Davis. Mike, I just want to say, I have personally experienced exactly what you're talking about the whole fighting thing. If you ever want to cause a rift in your family, don't have anything. It is really best to actually have, and now as Mike had mentioned, you want to actually have a will, your digital will, and you want to have different individuals to control.
And actually, if I could jump back, George, Susan. So you talk about your husband just closing all your accounts. Now, I don't know if now forgive me, I've got a puppy here in my lap. Who's licking me? Imagine you pass and your husband starts closing accounts, perhaps some bank accounts, perhaps this, perhaps that. And I don't know if you have children or nieces and nephews or friends who say, hey, wait, Susan said I could get that. That's mine. And then suddenly there's a fight.
Well, what I'm talking about really is closing the digital aspect of it. For example, my bank account, I can log on and check my status. But I would want somebody to close the digital access to it, but not necessarily close the account. That's sort of what I'm talking about. Closing digital access.
And the sad thing is, when people get into an argument or into a legal dispute, do you know who wins? The old joke is the attorney. Oh, yeah, because he or she gets paid regardless. So just because it may seem simple to you doesn't mean that someone else can cause chaos. And whether it's legal or not, they can do it. And if they find the right attorney, they may try to do that. And this is to help prevent chaos for the executor after you pass.
Let me ask this question, Mike, since you
Sure.
deal with this on a daily basis. There is the Social Security death file. Have any of these companies, because I'm a former banker working in several different banks, and I know that this file exists, and basically what it does is when a person expires,
Right.
the Social Security Administration notifies everyone, essentially banks or whoever has access to Social Security. Have any of these digital companies such as Facebook, Amazon, have they actually started tapping into that, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge, but again, this is still a new, there's a privacy issue concern. As you know, like Google and Facebook are having privacy issues left and right from people tapping into their information. They may or may not actually want it. They may have an issue about control. I mean, think about it. Your Facebook page, even if it's just a personal page, helps them generate money.
Exactly.
And they may not want to know that you passed because they don't want to take the legal responsibility to have to close it.
Right, but I'm looking on the flip side of that. When you look at like Amazon, because I don't have an Amazon Marketplace account, do they actually require a Social Security number for that? And if that case is, if you're selling stuff on Amazon, it generates a 1099, and the Social Security number would be tied to that. So therefore, they would get notification or have access.
One would think, but that's not a guarantee. And then so if you pass, who gets the 1099? Because you still have to close. Because you still have to close the account, and there may be some money still coming in.
Right.
And on top of that, quite honestly, you may not want to close the account. You may want to transfer the account. If like Amazon Marketplace, you know, if you were like, for instance, a big gun retail, and you know you have a business that's worth, you know, some substantial sum of money, you may want to sell that and not close it. So you don't want Facebook and Amazon to automatically close things.
Right. And what happens at the bank level is that it's not actually closed, it's actually frozen. So.
But then, you know, do you want, if you got automatic ongoing transactions happening, you know, for instance, if I'm selling software online and, you know, it's a popular software add-on for whether it's a Mac or Windows or whatever, that you could just automatically buy, that doesn't really need any human interaction. And that's just a cash cow for you.
Right.
But I mean, so yes, there are, you know, you would think it would be simple. Unfortunately, it tends to be more complex. And as you mentioned, you know, someone's going to start fighting over something somewhere. So George, did I answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay.
Because it wouldn't surprise me if soon down the road, everybody starts tying into that Social Security death file, because it really is the way to find out if someone's deceased. It's the master file, because actually the post office ties into it too. So,
but again, it goes back to, so let's say Facebook and Amazon are all tied into that Social Security death file. The question still remains, who gets what from that?
Right. Exactly.
And you still have to. That's why you still need the detailed DWE.
Exactly. And I totally get, and you're definitely right. But the one thing about it is that it could trigger a situation where things are frozen. Like maybe,
right, you're right. And then you need the DWE to unfreeze it.
Exactly.
And because, you know, the estate may be losing out on money.
Right.
And, you know, we want to make sure everyone gets paid accordingly.
I've got a question. What about physical goods that have a digital component? So I'm thinking about something that it's part of my estate, like my Roomba, for example.
Right.
But I can't just give it to somebody because it's got an account associated with it. It's linked to me. They can't use it because it's my login and my password.
And because of that, you need to have a DWE.
So that would go the DWE because it's a physical good as well as
Well, I mean, with all due respect, I'd be a little bit upset if it's sort of like, remember back in the day when, as a gift, you get an iPhone,
Right.
except the problem is the account isn't being paid for by the person giving the gift. So can you imagine getting like this great piece of like a Roomba or whatever? Yeah, you own the machine, but the account associated with it, I gave it to Bill, or Bill's fighting over it because he has access to the account. He says, well, actually the Roomba's mine since I have the account. So if you have some sort of digital connection to a device, you're probably going to want to have it in your DWE. For instance, same thing with your cell phone. If it's associated with an account and stuck to that account, you want to make sure that that person has the account access too.
Well, I can actually touch on that. One thing about it is, it's like with the Roomba, it has the ability, and this is like you were talking about with 1Password or LastPass. If you can log into the digital online account, you can deactivate the account, separate the account from the physical device. That way it can be given to someone else.
Right, but
somebody has to have that access.
Right, but not only someone has to have some access, but if the wrong person has that access, they could be a jerk and say, I'm not resetting it.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's a very valid point.
That's just assuming that people are nice.
Right. And that's like you said, that's the reason why the DWE and this is what we always say here about having a password manager, because first of all, we all know there's two things that are going to happen: death and taxes. So you can resolve one of them real easy with the password manager.
Which one?
Probably both.
That was good.
Any other questions?
You guys are quiet today, and I am shocked on this particular topic that you're so quiet.
I hope I didn't bore everyone.
I have a question.
I'm surprised. Go ahead, Marcia.
So, do a lot of these online places like Facebook, Google, Yahoo, and stuff have clauses in their terms of service regarding this?
Yes, I believe most, if not all, do. And if they don't, you kind of need to figure out what to do. If that makes sense.
Believe me, but now they all do, because several people have died. And as Mike was talking about the fighting, it has happened and it has escalated to the point where they have been brought into court and they're like, no.
Hey, I'd like to say something. This whole conversation was excellent. It reminded me of how our group tends to need a round to it, to do things like backing up our computers and doing some of the basics that we know we should do. And I'd just like to remind you, this was excellent. And maybe some of us need to go back to a real basic place and get some of these basic things in place. And I'd like to remind you that Susie Orman's podcast, I think it was in May, she has recognized that about after working with many, many people who did not have these vital documents in place. And she has created a very accessible package to acquaint us with what to do. So if you haven't done that, go back and look up that, go back to her early podcast. I think it was in May sometime.
Or possibly Michael has some alternative places where you can do that kind of stuff.
Quite honestly, I don't at the moment, but I am working on it. I do invite people to, if you have questions, please feel free to email me or call me. I'm more than happy to talk with you. Trust me, I've found a hole that needs to be filled, and I'm really actually looking at it. It's going to become more popular, I'm sure, but right now I think people are still trying to figure out what to do. And as I mentioned, some of these laws on the state books are maybe 2 or 3 years old at best, and everyone's adapting to not only the new law, but is the law going to be changed? Are there going to be any regulations involved? How is each state going to handle it? Because you've got 50 plus, because it's the states, and then also DC and Puerto Rico and the Dominican Islands that have their own laws and their own ways of doing things. So it's not clear yet.
And one thing that Michael mentioned is about the laws changing. As different cases work their ways through the system, this is what will change the laws. And we all know we're in Illinois, and we all know, well, the majority of us are in Illinois. We know how our laws change.
And not only that, it'd be interesting to see if the federal government ever does get involved, because, you know, a lot of these digital assets are really, in a sense, you know, not based in Illinois, they're not based in California, they're based all across the country, if not the world. So does the commerce clause come in that would allow the federal government to say, hey, since this constantly crosses state borders, is this something that we need to regulate?
And that brings up another question, because when you think about it, what if you actually have an account that's not US based, that it's based in another country? That could cause a whole nother ball of wax.
And they may have their own completely obtuse set of rules and agreement terms that we're just not familiar with. You know, if we buy something or using something, say based out of Germany or Russia or Australia, or, you know, who knows? You know, because you have to look at all these different rules and regulations, and then international laws and treaties. It gets even more complex.
But the one thing that's nice, if you have the password manager and you put that password, like that master password, in the sealed envelope, that will make life a lot easier for a lot of people. Me personally, I have done that. I actually have my master password in my safety deposit box. That is the one reason why I said this is a reason to keep the safe deposit box, is to keep my master password in there.
Well, in fact, I mentioned this, you know, in another setting just recently. I have a thumb drive that's in my safety deposit box that has all of my information. So if you can get into the safety deposit box, you have access to and directions to where all of this stuff is that anybody can use. Because the part of the problem is you have to manage the directions as well, right? You have to manage, you can't put it on a disk drive, on a CD anymore. You can't put it on a floppy anymore. Now, thumb drives are going to be obsolete pretty soon, right? You have to be able to at least, put this in a form that gives direction even to your DWE, even to your, to the people that are going to manage what you want done, right? And it's got to be in one place and easy to find. So,
and Davis, if you're going to go there with a thumb drive, you might actually want to just print that off,
right?
And either have a physical copy or have a scanned copy in your password manager. A lot of password managers will allow you to have PDFs in them, and you can just title instructions, if I die or if I become incapacitated. Because kind of like you said, if you just have it on a thumb drive, the technology may become obsolete, or it could become corrupted.
Yes.
So, sort of the 3-2-1 backups, you may just want to have other formats and or other locations for the information, so that, God forbid, if it's just the thumb drive and whatever happens, somebody, gets it out of there and in their grief, they step on it, drop it in the water or whatever, or have an electronic technical failure at home, they have other ways of accessing it.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, because one thing you got to remember, paper's been around for thousands of years, and I am a technical person. I love technology, but this is one of those times where, okay, I'm going to the ancient way.
Hey, George, I'd just like to say I was an executor for my dad's estate about 20 years ago, before there really was digital to think about. It was enough of a nightmare back then. And I think there are two sides to this. I think a lot of us have, graciously agreed to be somebody's executor. And this is the first I've heard of any of this, but it sure gives me pause thinking of the nightmare that probably awaits most of us who might become executors. I think we really stir this up and try to keep on this and find out, why aren't we hearing about this? This is going to impact our lives in a major way, one way or another. So I really encourage Davis to keep us hearing about this topic. It was great.
Yeah, you bring up a very valid point, because working in the banking industry, there's always a thing that when people become executors, there's always that funny line that says, congratulations and I'm sorry, because of not the person passing, but you're actually now the executor, because it is work. It definitely is. And it's at that time when someone has passed. So you also have to think about, when you name your executor, you want to talk to them about the situation. And do they have the mental capacity to actually deal with the situation of your passing and to be able to carry out your wishes in a timely manner? Because there are some things that have to be executed in a timely manner.
Question. How many, how many copies of the death certificate would you suggest, and if you know that you're the executor of somebody's will that has a lot of digital content?
To be blunt, that's going to be dependent on your state and what the actual TOSs are for each provider. Some may require an original copy. Some may be fine with a digital copy. Others may be fine with just a regular paper copy. It really depends on the TOS. So unfortunately, your executor is going to ultimately have to go through all of your accounts and figure out who needs what, where, and when. And that's something that you can prep for your executor. It's just that since everyone's so different, I don't have a solid answer. And to be blunt, I also don't know what accounts you have. So we'd have to go through them all one by one and figure out what it is we need and how many copies of what and how.
The one thing about it, Marcia, is the nice thing is when you run out of copies, they will give you more. But of course, there's more than likely a fee for that.
Right. And hopefully the estate has some money that will pay the executor back for that, for the costs.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I've got a question. We've been talking about what happens upon someone's death, but there's something a bit more immediate for my concern when I was doing my estate planning, which is incapacity.
Same thing. You have to determine who can do what, where, and when, and for how long, and to what degree of incapacitation you are. You may be, in an operation and out for a week, but you may be able to slowly return back to work. At what point does that occur? If you're in, heavens forbid, a medical situation where the prognosis is just simply unknown and the treatment schedule is simply unknown, how long does that go? And how much power do you actually want to give that individual? And what powers do you want to give that individual? Make sure you don't give that individual power to sell your assets while you're incapacitated. There are unscrupulous people out there, and people who we think are our best friends or even family. I mean, with all due respect, I would not be surprised that every individual here who's attending this podcast, this video cast today, has not been screwed by a friend or family member. Legally speaking, it's rather unfortunate.
But where if you have, so I have planning documents for all of that, but they haven't specified anything about digital control. So
we need to write that in.
Okay.
That's we're talking about being as detailed as possible. Detailed as possible is necessary. I mean, there are a lot of little factors to consider, and your business and your digital assets may be different from what Davis needs, or what George needs, or what Ed and Becky need.
Right, because I need somebody, for example, to go in and pay my bills. Almost all of them are done online. They're not automatic. It needs to be done. They have the access, but do they have the legal right to do that? If I'm
well, if I mean, you know, if well, you kind of bring up two questions. One, if you've given someone access to do that, and you don't want them doing that, like for instance, right now, if you know, I hope you're healthy and safe. That, you know, if that person has access to whatever account to pay bills, first question is, why do they have access to those accounts and pay bills unless it's a joint account? I think you're putting yourself in possibly financial harm. But you know, once the digital will has been created and that person's been granted access, you can still limit what they can and can't do. They can pay the regular monthly bills. If there's some sort of unexpected bill over $10,000 that they need to wait on, or maybe needs to be disputed, and quite frankly, on top of that, what happens if the bills need to be disputed? Does the DWE have that power to, or you know, the temporary DWE have that power to fight that as executor? I mean, these are details you need to think about. And like, you know, for instance, if heaven forbid you are incapacitated for a while, certain bills may not necessarily need to be paid. Certain things may need to be paused. You know, I'm an attorney. Heavens forbid I become incapacitated for 2 months. You know what I don't need? I don't need my LexisNexis account. You know, for example. But my needs are going to be different than yours, unless perhaps you're an attorney who practices in the same area and so on and so forth, which I doubt. I'm being a little silly, yeah, but that's to make the point that everyone's needs are different.
Mm-hmm. But which planning document does this go into, or which legal document does this go into? I mean, a digital will is only in effect after I'm dead, so.
Right, but you can make a digital will, not a digital will per se, but a digital incapacitation document that if you're incapacitated for whatever reason, that automatically these things go to, you know, X, Y, and Z and for how long and whatnot. So this is another addendum to, for instance, your will. I mean, your will should have provisions in it if you become incapacitated, not dead, but incapacitated. Same thing with your digital will. It should become another provision of, or separate provision of, related to the wills. So yeah, what I've just done is I've given you several different reasons to go in so many different directions with so much detail that is becoming overwhelming, that unfortunately a lot of people say, you know, fudge it. I'm just not going to deal with it and let that person just suffer because I'll be dead anyway. Well, you know, you can do that. However, you're not only harming the relationship that you have with the executor, but you're harming all of your friends and family and perhaps even business associates that have some sort of tie to you. It sucks. I mean, it sucks. This is just a ton of work I've given everybody. So hopefully, I hope everyone doesn't hate me.
No, we do not hate you, Michael. But however, I'm going to let that be the last word, because unfortunately we have basically about a minute here, and I need to close this out. Just want to,
George, I'd like one last thing I want to make sure I mentioned as far as our survey. I put a link in the chat. You also are going to get a pop-up when the meeting ends. Please fill out the survey. We'd like to hear your feedback on how the meeting went, whether good or bad, and how we can do better. Just be sure that you fill that out for us. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
See, that's the president. He always takes over precedent of the host. So thank you, Dave.
I just want to make sure, but you were aware of that.
Thank you, I appreciate that, Dave. Mike, I want to definitely thank you for actually coming, and I want to thank the other guy behind the curtain, Bob Fairbairn, for assisting with the chat. Just want to let everybody know our next regular Zoomcast or meeting will be November the 7th. Our other upcoming event, which will be our photo SIG. Unfortunately, we will not have an iOS SIG in November, but the iOS SIG will resume in December. If in the event that you're viewing this after the live recording, please don't hesitate to join us online at myscau.org. Go ahead, click on the join us and become a member of the Suburban Chicago Apple users. We'd love to have you. But this presentation will be posted in our online community with additional discussion, because I know we're going to keep it going, folks. And with George Brooks, I'm George Brooks from the Board of Directors, and we thank you all for attending, and go ahead and have a good Mac Apple day.